Well, that was game one. We'll see what happens when we turn the page to game number 2. I am going to say personally, hopefully King Arthur's banned. I think King Arthur was simply too strong for this SSG lineup to really deal with. So I think that we should and we will see it banned out here. First round bans, though, go to Dig, and they will start the party by banning the Bear Mom. SSG will take care of Freya.
SSG opted for the second pick after that first loss. Similar bans from Dignitas compared to game 1 and 2 now. Same exact bans again.
I think this
from
is a mistake.
SSG.
I really think this is a mistake. Dignitas should absolutely slam pick windmill slam that King Arthur. And now Spacestation Gaming really need to double down. Go the Ao Kuang. The Neath, like you mentioned, is a good choice. Ao Kuang first selection here. I do like this choice. Again, I just need more paired with it. And not just by way of character selection, I need more paired with it by way of strategy built around using it to kill Mr. Arthur.
It could be the Ao Kuang jungle this time around because that kind of matchup did not favor Aqua in the slightest. And I don't necessarily expect a Neef to be complemented with Xbalanque still on the table.
Fair.
Darkest of Nights is just very good. You don't want to give that to the enemy team, especially when they are the ones with King Arthur that can dive your backline. So going for a safe pick, I would say, at a BaRRaCCuDDa. Now, the aggressive composition with Naja, Xbalanque in the first game didn't really amount to much for SSG. So if they do pick it again in game number 2, they need to find a way to actually invade these buffs. Look for maybe the level 1 skirmishes.
Spacestation Gaming still figuring out if they want to lock these two characters in. Switching around to Naja now. Again, ambiguous. 3 different positions Naja can play. Maybe even 4, maybe even 5, frankly. The character is just all that in a bag of chips. Xbalanque going to be chosen here. Likely really only one spot you can play him in that carry role. So he'll be able to turn off the lights from the long lane.
Unless their name is Zeros.
Oh my goodness, that's a throwback. Zeros, and you know who else did it? Rest in peace. Proxy QQ actually also brought out the Xbalanque jungle so many moons ago. Oh man, what a throwback. Terra and Serqet here. Going to be the choice for Team Dignitas. So again, the Terra, talking to the green room with Hindu Man. All last year, Trix just wanted to play Terra, and he wasn't able to. Now, this is his revenge. He's just getting the Terra time and time again. And as I say frequently, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Just give Quavo the Serqet.
Terra's a great pick, honestly, and it can also be picked up by SSG, so you don't want to give that available to them, knowing that they can play Terra solo lane if it's not just support. And the AoE teamfight control between the root, the stun, lowering your opponent's damage, boosting your own damage numbers, having a heal, damaging the opponents, like so much utility behind this goddess's ultimate that if you don't have it, you're already playing with a disadvantage.
Dignitas flexing some of their new gear. Teaming up with Champion. Nice unis out there. Another one of my favorite things, having everybody in full uni all the time.
Oh, yeah.
The amount of times we've seen these guys walk in with their pajama pants on. It's been kind of funny.
You mean my Galaxy space pants?
That's exactly what I was talking about. I wasn't going to throw you under the bus.
Nah.
I'm glad you jumped in
I
front
own
of
up
it.
to them. You kidding me?
We'll
if
see.
I was wearing them right now, I would show them off.
We'll see if you'll bring the unicorn slippers, but we are going to bring the Thor back, baby. Love it. And I like that Spacestation Gaming. So I like and I don't like, right? I don't like that they didn't make the adjustment for King Arthur, because I do think that was a thorn in the side, to put it lightly. But I do like that they go back to the Thor, because I think there was some good merit to what was going on with andinster. He would go up, come down, and his team unfortunately wasn't able to follow up. I think that's to no fault of his own. So do it again, please, and thank you.
I think at this point, Aqua needs to consider going some Guardian in that solo lane. Go for Guardian's Blessing and play passive. Have more control in the team fight. Because right now, they're lacking that. It's single target. Naja can target one. Thor, generally more difficult to hit more than one target unless something aligns perfectly. So I'm looking at the Sobex, the Kumakarnas potentially. Terra's already picked for Dignitas.
Bacchus?
Bacchus is an option. We haven't actually seen it yet today, despite some of the buffs in level 1, but I hope to see it actually.
Dignitas make an adaptation and ban out the Ao Kuang. They did They did not want to deal with that a second time despite the victory. And the Morrigan will be banned out, so they're on the same level that you were in game number 1.
That's right. Morrigan is just so annoying to play with. It wasn't really banned away in that first game, surprisingly enough. I think that SSG could have taken a page out of that previous set, trying to see what BaRRaCCuDDa did in it. But playing the Thoth now, Venenu does love this character.
Long-range utility, long-range devastation as well. I call this guy the artillery fire, right? Like you just sitting in the back, just firing off mortars over and over again.
And now game 1, I wanted to point out, I didn't have the time to, where Janus is a lot more difficult, I would say, to time your ultimates perfectly. Thoth, you can cancel that ultimate preemptively at any given moment. It just scales off of how long you channel that ability. So now, I like SSG's composition because of that setup, but they need that AoE setup coming out of Aqua.
We'll see which direction he goes in after Dignitas finish up their draft here. King Arthur, Terra, and Serqet. 69 seconds left on the clock. Nice, Dignitas. Trying to figure it all out here. They need a carry and a mid laner if all goes in the correct direction, or the expected direction, I should say. And the black and yellow will be figuring things out.
So last game, Jingwei was picked before secondary ban phase, not banned away by SSG, so Ataraxia can easily go that direction again. Janus wouldn't be a bad look for Hurriwind. He loves that god, and that's going to enable more aggressive plays yet again from Dignitas, but not leaning towards the Jingwei's Ataraxia.
Hurriwind Janus has been one of my favorite characters watching Hurriwind play there. I've really enjoyed his Janus, so I really want this to be locked in, and it will be. And I think that just further enables Serqet and King Arthur. It enables Serqet to be even more slippery, and enables King Arthur to be even more omnipresent. You just can't go anywhere without a threat of somebody showing up, walking through that wall. And I think that's going to be a big deal as Dignitas finish out their draft with a Hachiman and a Janus. And there's the Bacchus, baby!
Finally.
There it is. Now, this doesn't necessarily mean Bacchus solo or support. I expect this to be in the hands of JeffHindla for sure, but
think so.
We'll see.
I mean, it could be Thor solo, Naja jungle, Bacchus support. It could also be the other way around. Like, these three guys, outside of Bacchus jungle, I think anyone could really play that. But
I mean, he's got a jump.
Between the three.
I mean, he's got a jump. He's got some burst damage. He's got some crowd control.
It's not an andinster type of god, is where I was getting at. Has he played a Guardian? I don't know.
Sure. I'll give it to you.
Yeah.
I'll give it to you. But either way, Bacchus, definitely a solo lane, possible character, but knowing these players and knowing more traditionally, I think we're likely to see Bacchus in the support role, and the flip-flop is really between Naja and Thor.
Yeah, probably that case. However, I don't know. I still got to lean a little bit more towards Bacchus in that solo lane.
Okay.
Because if you put a magical damage dealer in the solo lane against Arthur, he's going to build magical defense. That's going to enable Andy's Thor to make more effective ganks, abusing the magical defense.
Naja's also been oh so powerful. We'll see if it's powerful in game 2. Finch Taco, take us away.
I'll be happy to. Dignitas and Space Station now in game number 2, and we saw some big differences in the picks and bans Taco will have to keep our eye on. But JeffHindla is back on this Naja, and it's Aqua taking the Bacchus into solo. Remember last time, these early starts are important, Taco, so we got to keep an eye on where everyone goes to.
But totally hit the nail on the head there on the analyst desk with that Bacchus specifically, because Andy will now have an opportunity, I think, or at least a better opportunity of actually punishing Variety and Qvo in that solo lane, because Variety, forced into the magical defense first of all, means he'll probably be looking towards an Anquile or even the Runic Shield, and that's not going to give him nearly as much tank ability versus those ganks.
Well, Trixtank has spotted out Aqua and JeffHindla trying to make their way down towards the enemy jungle. That means it'll be Variety and Trix pushing out Andinster on speed on the Chaos side. Meanwhile, Order can hold on to their speed. They'll have a 2v2 up against the solo and support. Meanwhile, the Hunters just fighting out like normal. And aggression onto the speed, but QvoFred already in some trouble. Looks like he secured it, but he's not going to be able to make it out with his life. He's so low already and being hunted down.
Still has that Deathbane available, though, and the Blink is what's going to really get him on out of there.
Nice
Deathbane
job.
As well, probably one of the best abilities at level
speeds.
1 to defend their own buff.
Exactly. It's very good for confirm and could potentially provide some mobility if it gets back up. And they actually do secure both on the side of Dignitas, so that's not bad at all. They are trading out, it looks like, on these blue buffs, though. You can see Jeff and Aqua down there getting the blue buff on the order side. Meanwhile, it's Trixtank and Variety up there on the blue buff on the Chaos side. So those two end up switching out, so it doesn't either really hurt either side. But now they've dropped the Horrific. They want the fight. JeffHindla potentially could be caught out. Even the Monolith blocking him and slowing him down.
Good burp from Aquarius, but it's just not enough. JeffHindla is going to take an early spill here, and now Aquarius might get body blocked into his own death, but Bacchus and all those damage mitigations. 4-man rotation, though, from Dignitas really early on here as well.
And I want to make sure I point out that Terra is so good at this specifically, this moment bullying in that early game, because she does have the walls, but once she has that Monolith up and she starts chunking at you with those slows as well, it's so impossible for you to get away. They body block, they knock up, they were able to keep JeffHindla locked down, first blood for Dig, and they're looking good yet again.
Horrifics from both of these supports as well,
Exactly,
and they both
yeah.
got popped at roughly the same time. A little bit of a difference between, but still, it goes to show that Trixtank, I think, is also making very smart decisions on this Terra with not only hanging around Variety a little bit more so, because I don't think that Terra would have this same level of impact in dual lane right now.
Right, that's why, I think that's largely why we see the supports over here, is because they just can't get that same impact that they can over here on the solo side. And more importantly, they're slowing down these junglers as well. Aqua is on the Bacchus. He should be tankier and have an easier time this time, but they're leaving him alone, it looks like, in the 1v1. JeffHindla is going to join the mid lane instead, so it'll be the 2v1, excuse me, that's happening over here in solo.
But this is what I wanted to see from Space Station, and I think this is what they're looking to remedy this solo lane focus with by applying pressure to mid and duo, and they have a much more punishing composition, I think, or at least Dignitas has made it a little bit easier by putting Ataraxia onto the Hachiman. I definitely want to see more and more of andinster just looking to control the opposite side of the map, because you can't really do much for Aquarius from this position now. They gave it a shot again, and it failed miserably, so unfortunately Jeff's just back to the drawing board and looking to collect farm wherever he can. Sitting at level 2 on the Ninja, so without a doubt, the most behind this game.
This is what they
the
need
wall
to do,
is what
though.
we're waiting for.
Exactly. Come over, try and pressure Ataraxia. They couldn't quite lock him down, but they got the red and purple this time, Taco. The exact counter invades that they needed to try and make up for the fact that they're losing blue and speed over on the opposite side of the map by solo. It hasn't quite normalized things out, but this is where Space Station can try and stay relevant and slow down this bleeding.
It has already started to make a difference, though. BaRRaCCuDDa, despite splitting nearly every single one of these waves with Andy, hits level 5 before Ataraxia because of those steady purple and red buff invades, and that's also going to start taking a toll onto Hurriwind, I believe, and Venenu on this Thoth. While it might not be easy to match the mobility that Hurriwind can provide on this Janus, Venenu will at least have the poke potential that I think Space Station were sorely missing out on last game.
Exactly. That's, I think, those key areas to look at, right? Those changes in the draft. The Thoth is in here instead of the Janus in the mid lane for Space Station, and then they have this Bacchus in the solo lane. That does give them, it feels like, some much better safety potential. Bacchus can get away, is tankier, has those mitigations, and then Thoth can kind of half rotate over and still have some impact because of his tremendous range to try and slow down when they're coming to take these invades.
QvoFred and Trixtank, they want Andy's back Harpies, and they're going to get him. No questions asked. Andy not able to make it over in time, but will interrupt QvoFred's lazy back with a wall of his own. QvoFred still looking to try and make the back happen, but Andy's just heckling the Serqet wherever he can to keep him delayed as long as possible, because the longer it takes him to get back to base, the longer it takes him to maybe rotate back into a possible mid lane gank.
They have a chance to find Trix, but Trix has turned this one around. He's dashed right through and actually put very good damage on a Venenu through space and time. Just barely whizzes past Venenu and it doesn't hit home. The way andinster has to be mindful, his speed buff has respawned. It just respawned recently, and he's not there in position. Dignitas have that timer, and they might make another rotation up to steal it.
One positive here, though, for Space Station is that Hurriwind did expend the through space and time as their own red buff is about to respawn. So Dignitas will be able to recontrol their own buff timers yet again, but Andy is all by his lonesome here on this speed buff, and he does defend it successfully against Variety.
He's able to grab it, and they've got a target up in the air in the form of Trixtank, but they don't follow up immediately, so he's still healthy. But the dunk back down is good. There's no way for that Terra to go, and andinster finds the kill. Now Variety is pushed up entirely on his own. King Arthur's good, but can he 1v4? Maybe he can. He's going right to the carry in the backside, but Venenu is going to fall. Variety somehow gets a kill out of all that to at least take down the bird.
They're still trying to bring down Variety, but it's going to take them a while because these guys are all out of mana. They're going to have to disengage. Andinster's going to end up falling as well. But now Variety's got backup. It's just going from bad to worse here for Space Station.
Look at his camera. He's laughing. Variety is in tears after he somehow gets 2 kills in the 1v4 on King Arthur, man. When he's got that Glad Shield done, this god is so difficult to fight. And like you said, they didn't have much mana. They didn't have their cooldowns. They committed so much to taking down Trixtank. Variety can't believe it, man. He's laughing.
Well, to be fair, that's probably a delayed laugh from the picks and bans phase when he got the King Arthur again to begin with.
That's great.
When you watch a King Arthur 1v4 your team, you do have to start to wonder if it was worth it.
Venenu does have the beads. That gets him away from QvoFred, who jumps back to join Hurriwind at the back end. So a couple ultimates traded out, though it does end up costing the relics of Venenu to keep him alive. But man, it's such a boon for Dignitas that Variety was able to play that so perfectly and to turn that trade around, because they didn't get the speed buff invade successfully and they lost Trix. He made that a 2-for-1.
Also, this is the difference between a Bacchus solo and an Al Kwang solo. Dignitas banning away that AO wasn't a BM shot to Aquarius by any means.
Not at all.
It was legitimately so that Variety could do things like what he just did 1v4ing Space Station and get away with it because there's no one to execute him when he falls low enough.
Aquarius does get him low, but like you said, it's not low enough. He should be able to sustain that up just fine. But you're exactly right. The fact that Dignitas won Game 1 so handily and still showed that respect ban of the Al Kwang, which is exactly what it was, showed that I don't think Space Station misstepped so much in their composition as they did in that early game execution, as now they're looking for this red buff invade on the left-hand side.
And there's problems right now for Space Station. They will be able to confirm their own red buff, but Trixtank's not out of the woods just yet. Seems like Space Station might be looking for more, and here comes Andy crashing down on top of the Terra. Darkest Nights as well, but no one else to follow it up.
And Hurriwind drops it through space and time. They might want to continue this chase, and they've got the portals to do so. JeffHindla does not have ultimate, so he doesn't have much by way of mobility, but he barely makes it back to the tier 1. A purple buff invade, which is successful, is still pretty good, but now Venenu and andinster have shown up to try and turn this fight around. Ben gets hit by the last breath early on and falls through the portal. He's low, and Trixtank gets the kill to clean him up. JeffHindla falls as well. Ataraxia, let his voice be heard. Hurriwind takes down Andy 3-for-0 as Dignitas is bullying SSG.
That solo lane tower missing is the reason why we see Variety already starting to make the rotations. Ataraxia will end up losing his purification beads, but Aquarius, without that Intoxicate, there's not really much steal potential here. Dignitas are low, but there's only 2 members available on the map currently for Space Station to try and defend. The other 3 just finished respawning. BaRRaCCuDDa knows if he shows his face, he's toast, so he's just going to have to try and sit it out tight in the dual lane. But now this lead is really starting to open up here, Finch, and I can't help but start to get a similar vibe to that Game 1 experience here for Space Station.
It feels so similar, doesn't it? Look at how out of control these charts are already. This might be even worse. And it's disbelief on the faces of Dignitas. I mean, you can write up your plan, but I don't think you ever in your plan write up that your Arthur 1v4s and wins. Like, I don't think that part of it's in there. And they've played so well as a team. This looks like cohesion to me, Taco. This feels like a team that when you've got to make a bunch of these micro decisions so quickly, multiple times in a row, that they're on the same page and they've been able to answer correctly every time.
And one big point about this also is Andy is going to be forced to ult away level 6 Thor, by the way, and
wow, he's itty-bitty.
Every little bit of it hurts to see for Andy. I mean, I feel his pain right now on this Thor. He's just been so heavily pressured. They're losing their buffs in duo, they're losing their buffs in solo. It just feels like Space Station have nowhere left to turn here after that outplay by Variety.
Nothing on the map is free for them right now. And Thor can do some things when he's behind. A wall is still a wall. You know, a stun from just about anywhere is still a stun. As Venenu nearly dies under his own tier 2, he does land the root onto Ataraxia, and andinster has return damage, but it's not enough. QvoFred removes the bird. JeffHindla now in some trouble, and he will go up into the air. That's good damage from Aqua to bring QvoFred low as Ataraxia will fall. They make it 1-for-1 mid for Hunter.
So far, so good for Space Station. At least they were able to find the return somewhere, Finch, but this speed buff is looking a lot like it's going to be Varieties here. Aqua looking to play defense, Jeff with the sash inwards, and hurry, those beats probably weren't even necessary, but I can completely understand him wanting to just clean up the kill.
Horrific Emblem's been committed as well to try and lock down Aqua. He's recognized the futility even backs in place, and he ends up sending back to the base. Now Variety, he wants to redo it. Let's do another 1v3. Y'all couldn't handle it last time, but can they this time? He does fall back to at least take the portal, courtesy of Hurriwind, but that's the tier 1 tower. The speed buff invaded. That's several picks as well, though they do lose Hurriwind on the back end, but now BaRRaCCuDDa will pay as QvoFred comes over the wall and Variety works with him.
Big kill bounty, though, to bring down Hurriwind, and with Gold Fury having already been taken, the only real objective left on the map right now is the Pyromancer, but I don't see Dignitas really in any rush to go take the Pyromancer. They've already gotten such a massive lead just pushing into Space Station's jungle so frequently that they're honestly better off just continuing to cause so much chaos for Space Station's carries, because BaRRa and Venenu, I mean, the sacrifices that their carries have been trading off in order to find even a single pick,
right.
You just have to question, is it worth it? And in a sense, it kind of is. There is some small delay value to be added off finding a pick onto one of the members of Team Dignitas right now, but when Quvo can just half-health andinster with a single combo, almost killing andinster, in fact, I think he's just going to end up cleaning him up before Ataraxia can even finish the job.
Through space and time does clip BaRRa. He's half health and virtually out of the fight already. It certainly can feel that way. Aqua spills the wine, and that does deter a little bit Dignitas aggressing, but they just want this red buff, which they happily claim. Variety is not deterred. He pushes forward past the wall, and that forces BaRRaCCuDDa to disengage early on, but he's got his eye set onto Venenu. The bird in trouble, the bird down, and he goes right up into the air, gets him away from the tower, but not entirely. Aqua gets the shutdown bonus, and they finally take care of Variety.
Right now, Finch, every little bit counts here, and now that it seems we'll finally have a slight lull in the action here, I don't know how confident I really feel in saying that, but I really do want to point out the fact that Variety, I think, had to make a decision at the start of this game as to whether or not he was going to full commit to the Glass Shield and just take the risk of, you know, dying early on to Aquarius, but that Glass Shield ended up being the sole reason why he was able to 1v4 Space Station so early on.
Exactly.
And really alley-oop Dignitas into the lead that they have now.
And Taco, you talked about how you wanted to see some more pressure from Space Station early on this dual lane of Ataraxia, and that never got a chance to materialize, I feel like. They never got a chance to even go over there.
They started and then they stopped, and I think it was because they were so concerned about solo lane running rampant right immediately that they thought, well, maybe now with the Bacchus, Thor, and Thoth will have enough range damage to bring him down.
Right.
But Variety choosing to make that rotation so early on and not getting punished for it is just what really crippled Space Station here.
And there was a really small decision point earlier in the game for andinster. I think it was either the second or third spawn of that speed buff, where they look for an engagement near the red buff on the order side, right in that little narrow corridor, instead of being there for his own speed buff spawn. Now, he might not have his timer, he might not know exactly when that one was back up, but because they end up coming back to that speed buff later on, that's when they meet for that 1v4 fight. And yes, Trixtank falls, but Variety turns that one around by himself. If they go get the speed buff initially, they don't have to have that fight at all. It might not even have been a chance for him to make that choice, but because of the way they end up having to play it, things go in Dignitas' favor.
Well, BaRRaCCuDDa going to get forced away by Trixtank because he knows that if Trixtank is this deep in his jungle, that probably means he's got company, and
Exactly.
he does. A level 14 King Arthur at that. Hurriwind and Ataraxia taking their sweet time on this Gold Fury because even though Space Station knows it's happening, there's not a damn thing they can do about it.
They absolutely can't come in. In fact, BaRRaCCuDDa drops his ultimate just for QvoFred's presence on that right-hand side of the map. They will indeed grab the Fury for themselves and even force out Space Station without them being able to find anything on the right-hand side. They'll even grab this tier 1 tower in left. Right now, just as we saw in Game 1, Space Station have already had to cede nearly everything on the map over to the Order team and just try and get what farm they can that comes to them.
Raid Boss in left lane seems to be calling in for his backup.
He's got it.
Dignitas is all just supporting members of the Variety show right now, by the way. And if Space Station let this King Arthur happen one more time, Finch, I'll just be in disbelief.
I'm right there with you, right? It would feel like stubbornness almost to not just ban this one away. And they've allowed it to go back to Variety. Variety has shown that he can absolutely get the maximum value out of this pick, as they do want to make sure they split that blue buff farm. I mean, they didn't seem to have an answer to it that was very different from last time.
Well, the problem here for Space Station, I think, is that they felt the drafts they opted for were the solution to King Arthur. It's like the gamble you take of, let's see how well this is really going to work out for us. But I just think that either King Arthur or Serqet, one or the other has got to go, because right now, as it currently stands, Dignitas are still getting really strong level 1 counter contest around their buffs by having both of them. And so Qvo and Variety, they're not really all that pressed, because at the end of the day, they're probably guaranteed at least one of those speed buffs, and as long as the trickle-down effect keeps coming into play, I just think that while Spacestation might have what they believe to be answers to King Arthur, why take the chance, period, of such a dominating god going into the hands of Variety?
Because even if they have the answer to King Arthur, it's not as if that answer is this oppressive in the other direction, right? It's not like they'd get this big of a swing going their own way. But I do want to make sure I point out, I think this Terra is a big part of why this strategy has worked for Dignitas as well. Twice now, the level 1 fight, specifically from this Terra, has been very, very difficult for Space Station to deal with. So there's multiple pieces to this puzzle, and they've got to take away at least one: Serqet, King Arthur, and this Terra.
I'd also love to see Andy on Naja.
Yeah, I don't know if support Naja has worked for them particularly well either.
I think that Jeff has definitely struggled on the support Naja. He just hasn't been able to pressure the backline, which is kind of what you're looking for when you go support Naja.
Yes.
So pressure out dual lane super heavily. Right now, though, Trixtank could be in a little bit of trouble, but it's Venenu who's going to get eaten up by this King Arthur.
He dropped the ult on him, and there really was nothing more to that story. That was the final chapter. Aquarius is able to jump away, but the walls are waiting for him. Hurriwind has the unstable vortex. It's still not enough to kill him as JeffHindla goes up into the air, but he's merely prolonging the inevitable. As soon as they land, he'll have help coming in from andinster. What a pairing as he turns that one around and corrects me mid-sentence. An excellent turnaround from JeffHindla.
Signs of life from Spacestation Gaming. Aquarius somehow managed to hobble his way out of that 10% health threshold into the fountain, and a really deep commit from Dignitas, getting counter collapse quite nicely here from Spacestation. Unfortunate that they weren't able to cut off Trixtank before he got that back off, though. Could have been an opportunity for Spacestation to maybe look for some of these T1 towers in the different lanes, but Jeff and Andy definitely combined forces there for a moment, Finch, to save the life of Jeff.
Yes, that was very impressive for them. We just heard for production as well that he was at 2 HP, JeffHindla was, when he hit that Windfire Wheels, I assume, and then had the perfectly timed follow-up from andinster, because I don't think that you could have waited even another frame or so, right? All that was needed was an auto attack to take JeffHindla down there, so they had to keep that CC chain perfect to make sure that they were able to clean up that kill. So well done from Space Station. Clearly, there's still some synergy there. They just have not been able to figure out this early start.
I think it's also a friendly reminder to Dignitas that they can't afford to be that reckless. I mean, they've been pretty degenerate already, sending Variety out into the T2 tower for a year and a half to dive, but this right here is what it's all about. The core of Dignitas, just looking to pressure out individual targets, and now Hurriwind to connect the pieces with that through space and time.
They were able to isolate andinster on the back end, dissect the fight, and cut it in half, and that sets up an easy pick, which should set up now an easy Fire Giant. We're only about 19 minutes into this game, but Dignitas can certainly burn this one down.
But that just could not have been more perfectly played from Dignitas, because when you send Space Station scattering like that, you have to remember that Hurriwind on the Janus is going to be able to close the gap significantly faster than anybody from Space Station. The only one who could really somewhat keep up is andinster, and he's the target. He's the real one that Dignitas are after, because he's probably got the best ult contention for this Fire Giant. I would say normally Venenu, because his Thoth and Final Judgment is awesome for securing objectives, but Venenu can't afford to get anywhere near that Fire Giant pit. He is level 14 and struggling right now because of Dignitas just smothering him time and time again, throwing Variety into his face.
Stripping away farm, it does hurt these mid laners a lot. As this is the good old-fashioned gold here on the left-hand side that Dignitas will secure with no issues. They've also got the Fire Giant buff, so they can push whenever they'd like. But I think you're correct to point out that Dignitas have had great target selection in this game so far as well, with these picks so far. To be fair, for Variety, there's very few bad targets, but part of what set up that 1v4 to go so well for him is that he was looking for the squishiest member of the fight the whole time. He got rid of Venenu early on, right? And that sort of thing, when you're in a bad situation, you can at least figure out who you can trade your life for, is what Dignitas does so well.
Dig also just kind of taking their sweet time, pushing up all the lanes. I think Space Station did just about everything they could by extending those creep waves up into their favor. If only for a moment, they'll have at least a couple of seconds to breathe easy. Aquarius flopping out of danger here, but...
It's not his red buff, so...
It's just the fact that Trixtank can push into 4 different members, an entire full team grouping for Space Station, and not feel even remotely threatened. That is how commanding this lead is right now.
You're exactly right. Tier 2 tower in mid should go down. Space Station can't afford to stick around and defend that. Speed buff, red buff stolen away as well as they try and huddle around the warmth of this Phoenix to at least make some kind of defense. But as you pointed out earlier, Dignitas have been very patient, very particular about their pushes so far. They have not been jumping the gun, aside from perhaps that one Phoenix Siege where you saw JeffHindla and andinster get the turnaround. Aside from that, it has been immaculately timed from these two.
I like that from Hurriwind. Cheeky portal just to threaten the possibility of Variety getting sent straight into the
Exactly
backline
like
right now.
And he looks for JeffHindla early and forces him back. Aqua jumps in, so he's now a sitting duck as Variety keeps JeffHindla back. andinster is up in the air. But does he feel brave enough to dive into 4? Certainly not. Through space and time. Smacks him in the mouth. They're both down low. JeffHindla and andinster are both already out. Aqua goes back in and does drop down the Intoxicate. But this Phoenix is still relatively healthy. They haven't been able to find time to burn it down.
Decent damage from Space Station. Venenu's actually was right on the money hitting Ataraxia, because that's going to prompt all of Dignitas to back off, make sure that their hunter is able to resustain back to a reasonable level, and then we'll see them begin to feel comfortable enough pushing back in. They've also got the Terra sustain, so just like that, Ataraxia is already back to full health, and only Jeff will have his ultimate for this next Phoenix Siege attempt.
That's right. It should be a much more difficult engagement. Also think that BaRRaCCuDDa won't have beads for this engagement, so he'll have the Aegis, but he'll be fully susceptible to control from QvoFred, Trixtank. He's got to keep his eyes out. As andinster's already low, Variety goes in right away. Beads come out to get him out of the danger, but now it's JeffHindla taking damage. He has to reposition. All of Space Station now about half HP, and that's the left side Phoenix earned.
It's going to tumble in very few seconds at all. I mean, what, maybe 5 tops for Ataraxia to work that one down? And I know he had some contributions on the rest of his team, but still, Dignitas just aren't showing any signs of slowing down right now, Finch, and they're still being smart about where they choose to initiate and where they choose to dive, but they're definitely being a little bit more reasonable, I think, ever since that failed deep right Phoenix dive that Dignitas went for, and we saw Qvo ended up taking a spill there. I think that was just the reminder to Dignitas that, hey, we can't go too overboard with this one. I mean, there's still Space Station. These are still good players. They can definitely turn and burn us if we're not careful.
And that's what's so impressive about this win, is just how strong Space Station is as a team and how dominant Dignitas have been able to look now across these 2 games. They have not completely closed this game out, though it does look strong for them. But I consider that Phoenix dive an anomaly. Dignitas have played this game so patiently. Aside from that, I think that was just one small overstep that didn't really cost them much at all, and they've been able to rein it back in very well since.
And he's been getting some pretty good double hammer tap damage, though, on a lot of these engagements. But the one thing that I think he's really going to have to keep an eye out for is Qvo ends up losing his Mag-Eye's cloak proc. So, nice win for Space Station for a minute, but by the time Dignitas start to look for their siege again, I'd imagine that Qvo will probably have that Mag-Eyes back up, no problem. It's just a small victory to point out, just in case the off chance occurs where Space Station looks to contest this next Fire Giant, but judging by where all the Space Station is located right now, back at base, I highly doubt that to be the scenario we're going to watch play out.
But they do have a much better chance, I feel like, of defending in this game than they did in Game 1. Already, Aqua has shown he's much tankier on this Bacchus than he was at the Alquang. The Alquang built kind of hybrid-y. We saw him going heavily into the helmet tree, so he could still execute and deal damage, but try and survive more. This Bacchus is going to be able to frontline for this team, no problem. And Venenu's been doing great from long range when he's allowed to play the game and not getting immediately dove and killed. So I think that they can feel better in this game, Taco, about how well they can play this defense.
But it's really just all about the tanks for me, Finch. I am not sure how frequently Venenu is going to be able to apply that Divine Ruin proc, but that's probably going to be the most important part of these Phoenix defenses in my mind, because it's not so much the carries that Space Station have had an issue dealing with. I know that everybody on Dignitas only has 1 death so far, but when you think back of all the action that's taken place this game, it's Qvo, Hurriwind, and Ataraxia, I think, that have been consistently poked out the most from Space Station or from Dignitas and Space Station, I think, have already kind of shown if you leave your carries open, we will kill them.
Yeah.
But I think that I would like to see a little bit more anti-heal, which is why I think andinster might be building into a possible Brawler's beat stick. I think it's very well needed because the sustain from Variety and Trixtank combined, it just feels so overwhelming right now.
That's a good point. It doesn't feel like they have quite enough to stop some of this healing that's coming out from Dignitas here so far, and they might not have enough time to itemize into it to try and keep themselves standing as they regroup for these Phoenix sieges. Left side Phoenix will be up before too long, and they'll have some minions there if they want to push up to it. Variety is very far shoved up. 3 members in mid, and then they've got QvoFred by himself over in right. So there's 3 lanes of pressure for Space Station to worry about.
In Space Station, they're ready for this mid-Phoenix siege, but Trixtank already taking a little bit of poke, but it's JeffHindla who just gets chunked. Portal and the unstable vortex, and he's already back to the fountain, and that shell is long gone.
Yeah, it's just they won't have even that tool available to help them out, and there's no one to stop Variety from immediately re-sieging this left side Phoenix either, so that should go down right away. Meanwhile, the 3 members in mid have pressure to try and take this mid Phoenix as well if Ataraxia can get in range to try and let loose some shots. It's 4 members of Space Station here to defend too, so it won't be as easy as the left side Phoenix still has not quite yet fallen.
Left side Phoenix has respawned, but with Variety over there, I don't think anybody from Space Station should even bother with this King Arthur. Just cut your losses where they're at right now on this left side Phoenix and continue to stay focused on the mid lane because this is going to be Space Station's best bet at a comeback.
It almost doesn't feel too bad a trade to have andinster over there with QvoFred either. QvoFred has been a huge impact player for Dignitas, so if he's separated, that's good. As Aqua blinks in, immediately gets portaled and unstable vortex and gets chunked. JeffHindla falls, Aqua's right behind him as Ataraxia blows him up, then finds a double as andinster falls as well. Aggressive portal, Venenu dashes, evade and punish is good. Beads to try and trade his life out, but he can't find it. That's a triple for Ataraxia. Young man Nate letting him here, and now it's only BaRRaCCuDDa to try and keep this Titan alive, but Taco, I don't think he can handle it. There's too much coming from Dig.
I'm surprised Ataraxia is even bothering with the mid lane Phoenix. BaRRaCCuDDa, just like the rest of his team, he'll be left to watch from the black and white screen because Space Station are now 0-2 to Dignitas.
What an impressive set so far from this Dignitas team. And Taco, I had questions coming in about how Hurriwind in particular would meld with the squad. I wasn't too worried about Ataraxia. He is familiar with this team very intimately on Dignitas, so I thought he'd be able to meld. But Hurriwind, I had some questions for. Well, so far, he's absolutely answered them. He looks like he's meshing with this team perfectly. Their communication's there. He's landing everything he needs to land. I've even seen some great portals just to speed up their movement around the map. This guy is on the same page as the rest of this team.
I just don't even think Hurriwind's had to do anything in this set so
That's
far.
Also fair.
It's all been Variety, Qvo, and Trixtank in my mind because those 3 alone have just controlled the map so dominantly for Dignitas that Ataraxia and Hurriwind can rest easy. All they have to be is the follow-up candidates. That's all they really have to do is press their buttons on the rare chance that somebody's still alive by the time that the team fights are over.
But that's a workable strategy for this team going forward. And that's sort of my point, right? Is that Variety and Qvo are good enough to get pressure all the time, to be running the game all the time. So as long as Hurriwind can do exactly this consistently, which is be there when their team needs him, then the sky is the limit for this Dignitas squad. They haven't entirely closed this set out yet, though, but they're looking good. Let's get it back to the desk to see what they're thinking.
Thanks a lot, John. Taco as well. After game number 1, I sat here on the desk and I said, listen, now I'm not a Pro League player or Pro League coach, but I think we should ban King Arthur.
You did say that.
I still think we should ban King Arthur. 2 games in the book, both of which have a Dignitas stamp of approval. And if you want any more reason to ban King Arthur, here it is. 1 player, 10% HP versus 4. 1 goes down. He's surely going to die here.
Oh, surely you would think. But no, Glad Shield with King Arthur, with his 14-second cooldown.
He even missed. If he hits that ability, he might get a triple kill. 1 versus 4. Now, well, the thing missing from this replay is the player cam. Even Variety just, oh my goodness.
He was laughing.
And now I am calling the character very strong, which it is. But in the hands of Variety, I mean, Variety, one of the premier solo laners in the game. I mean, his ability to hit multiple players with abilities, just out of control.
it's obnoxious to deal with that kind of a cooldown reduction to get back the sustain. You don't give Variety King Arthur at the end of the day. However, in Space Station's hands, when you're already down 0-2, maybe you just figure out a strategy how to actually deal with King Arthur.
No, do it next time. Just ban King Arthur.
I think at this point, with Dignitas banning RDO, it's hard to really find ways to deal with it. Like JeffHindla rotating at level 1 with Aquarius actually hurt the start. It was an early kill that allowed, QvoFred and Variety also, that pressure in the solo lane. They killed him at level 2 because Jeff and Aqua was still level 1. It was an invade from Dignitas where they took away the speed, but SSG taking away the red instead.
Now, normally we're looking at damage and all these other numbers. The gold that players earned was really important here. About 5,000 to 6,000 differential between Dignitas and Space Station individually. That's insane. Dignitas was able to just get off the ground and never stop ascending. QvoFred, Variety, so much pressure. Taco said, I mean, Hurry almost didn't have to do anything.
No, I think Hurriwind doesn't have to worry about getting locked out of his room today. But in the interviews outside of Hurriwind, BaRRa's interview, he did say he wanted a quick 3-0 one way or another. And based off of this game so far, he might get it.
Oh, man, it's certainly possible. I do think that right now, if Space Station Gaming come back to the table after a King Arthur ban, this is a much different conversation. Variety's all strong and QvoFred is absolutely good, but I definitely think that the dominance with which Dignitas won these games came off of the back of the King.